The night was dark and rainy, the wind was howling louder than usual. Jason was lying in his bed, trying to fall asleep, but he kept hearing strange sounds coming from the attic. He tried to convince himself that it was just the creaking of the boards, but there was something eerie about the sound. When he couldn't take it anymore, Jason got out of bed and headed towards the stairs that led to the attic. He grabbed a flashlight and began to climb, but the wind picked up even more and the light went out. Jason was left in darkness and his heart started racing. He continued up the stairs, feeling his way along the walls, but as soon as he reached the top step, he heard a whisper. He froze and listened carefully. The whisper was faint, but he could clearly hear someone whispering his name. He lifted the flashlight and shone it on the attic. At first, he saw nothing, but then his gaze fell upon a figure in the corner of the room. It was a person standing with their back to Jason. Jason was frightened but summoned all his courage and spoke, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" The figure did not move or respond. Jason approached and tried to turn them around to see their face, but suddenly the figure disappeared into thin air. He began to tremble with fear and immediately went back downstairs. The next day, he told his story to his friends, but no one believed him. Since then, he never went back up to the attic and tried not to think about what might have happened that night. When Caitlin moved into her new home, she was thrilled to have an attic, but over time, she began to notice something strange happening up there. The first time it happened was when she heard a noise from above. She thought it might be a rat, but the sound was too loud and too much like human footsteps. She went up to the attic, but found nobody there. She looked through old boxes and furniture, but found nothing. When she came back down, the noise stopped. She started to notice that this noise happened every night. Caitlin couldn't take it anymore and decided to ask the previous owners about it. They told her that the attic was once inhabited by the grandfather of the previous owner who died there. They believed it was his presence, which could be heard in the quiet nights. Caitlin was frightened, but she managed to get used to the sounds. She began to understand that it was something good that was protecting her and her new home. Every time she heard a noise from the attic, she just smiled and fell asleep peacefully. The Stevenson family lived in a house on the outskirts of town, and they had a large attic that was only used for storing old things. But one evening when Mom, Dad, and their daughter Lisa were busy with their own affairs, a heavy rain began to fall from the sky. Lisa noticed that water was dripping onto the attic floor due to a leak and asked for permission to climb upstairs to close the window. When Lisa climbed up to the attic, she noticed that the light suddenly went out. She held the flashlight in her teeth and began to look around to find the window that needed to be closed. But then she heard a strange rustling behind her. She turned around, but no one was there. Lisa began to realize that something was wrong in this attic. Suddenly, she heard a voice whispering in her ear. She was frightened and began to run, but then something cold touched her hand. She looked down and saw a hand that looked elderly and cracked. Lisa was frightened and screamed, running away, but someone was holding her back. She started screaming throughout the apartment, and her parents heard her screams and rushed to the attic to save her. When they entered, they saw Lisa running toward them in a panic. She told them about the voice and how someone was holding her hand, but they'd found nothing in the attic except for the leak that needed to be fixed. However, Lisa still couldn't forget the terrifying experience in the attic and never went up there alone again.